What I'm going to do is go back to the Zoom page because
We're live right now. We're recording and we're live. So
perfect.
you want to start talking?
1 second, I hear yeah, okay. So I don't
Welcome
have
from the beach, Patricia. So glad of you that you joined us from the beach. How nice is that?
That's one of the benefits of being the boss.
Yeah,
right?
it sure is.
You can work from the beach. This was one of those ancillary benefits that I had not thought about.
Yeah.
But it's just like I can tell myself you have things to do, I can also tell myself that's it for today.
And you can give yourself that opportunity to take a breath
A
and
very
look
deep breath.
around and enjoy a little bit, right?
Yes, a very, very deep breath, because as you know, as lovely and as beneficial and as rewarding as the life of a bootstrapper or ancillary business right now at this point in time in history, it's also very difficult to manage so much change happening state to state, federal level, municipalities. Everyone's trying to figure out what their best practices are and how their business actually works with a system that is evolving.
And I think that's one of the challenges and the benefits. And let's go back a little bit. Let's do a little bit of history. So we've been talking about the Cannabis Business Alliance in some form or another for a little bit more than a year. And it's been rolling around in your head for a whole lot longer than that, for a couple years longer than that. What about the Cannabis Business Alliance really sparked your interest? What was that thing, or was there a thing that you said, hey, this is what I want to do?
That too has evolved over time, because I didn't have any skills in actually cultivating hemp or cannabis. I didn't really have any skills in any of the lines that we understand most higher level: extraction, manufacturing, warehousing. I didn't have those skills per se with the plant. But I thought that there had to be a way for me to bring my life experience to this genre, because it's a commodity, it's a plant, it's lots of different things. But how could I bring my life experience to bear on the changes that were happening, and my desire really to bring purpose to the work that I do as it relates to working toward alleviating the disparities in healthy aging. So that's a long story. I should have a spiel, but hopefully that made enough sense for you to understand that it was a roundabout course for me. I really spent the last 5 years really trying to figure out where could I fit as me. So that's how I got here.
Yeah, and I think that the point is that not only has it been an evolution, it continues to be an evolution, and it continues to grow, and it continues to expand. And it feels to me like the more people you meet, the more people you know, the richer Cannabis Business Alliance and the version of Cannabis Business Alliance that exists today, that is just starting to launch, is. And that depth and that color and that richness just keeps getting more and more and more, and you seem to add to it all the time. Are there things that you see in the Cannabis Business Alliance now that you'd like to see evolve further? What's the next step in your mind?
That the next step in my mind really is to figure out how the alliance can bring um, funds, money, support, tangible things to business owners based upon the changing laws. So one of the things that is happening right now is there's a fair amount of conversation at higher levels about the Safe Banking Act. So I have to understand that so that I can figure out what that means for people who run ancillary businesses. Where will we get money to feed and fuel the growth of our businesses? I mean, at some point, the conversation will shift to us rather than, say, dispensaries. But in the meantime, we still have to be working and understanding. And I think that's what I've grown to understand, that I really have to be involved in policy and regulation as it's being created in order to have some true effect on what will happen to ancillary businesses. I have to use my voice now. It's not something that I felt most qualified to do, but just as I learned in voting for legalization and assuming that certain things were in that law in my state in New Jersey that didn't exist, weren't there. I mean, maybe they would have been there if I'd been on the front row making noises about, I want to make sure that there's home grow. Well, it wasn't there, and I realize there are some things you have to give up. But in this case, the Cannabis Business Alliance has to be a force for change for all the ancillary businesses that are in this segment. That's the goal for growing our business. We will become an eminent voice for cannabis and hemp ancillary businesses.
So talk a little bit about ancillary businesses. I mean, I've heard you talk about different kinds of ancillary businesses. I think there are a couple of things that strike me every time I hear you talk about ancillary businesses. First is, what really is an ancillary business? And second is, what opportunity do ancillary businesses provide to people who may not be able to get into the business some other way? So that's kind of a two-part question. Sorry, that's not really fair to throw them both at you at once, but you got it.
Well, the first question was, what is an ancillary business, right? So the simplest response is an ancillary business is a non-plant touching business in the cannabis and hemp space. That's normally what people are referring to. But like when people used to talk about it, I wasn't really clear what they were talking about. You say not plant touching, but does that mean that a person who creates apparatus through which you can consume plants, is that a non-plant touching business? So a designer who creates pipes, or a designer who creates trays, or that would be an ancillary business. But so too is a person who builds dispensaries, for cultivation. That's an ancillary business.
I think one of the things that struck me is that when you run a business of any kind, you need support. So if you've got a grow facility, that grow facility needs lights, it needs fans, it's other things other than seed and cultivation. It needs marketing, it needs sales, it needs business strategy. So it's those kind of things that really just flew right by me until you started talking about really, what do all of these businesses need to not just survive, but thrive? They need packaging. Yes. They need transportation. They need people talking about policy.
They need lawyers. They need people who understand genetics. They need people, who are simply PR people. They need people who run the gamut from every other industry. Those same people are needed, perhaps in different ways. But the idea is that you still have to understand how it is working in the market, in order to be most useful. You need HR people, not all HR people are the same, and frankly, if you look at our member highlight, you'll see an example of one type person. I mean, I, for one, assumed that a recruiter was a recruiter, that everybody worked in HR the same way, but that's not the case. So therefore, what that shows you is that the industry offers you an opportunity to create yourself in a different way. You don't have to do business as usual. That's not to say that you won't have to struggle, but you may really have an opportunity to appear as something brand new. And I think that our member focus is an example of that this month.
And talk a little bit about our member focus.
Our member focus this month is the THC staffing group. The co-founder and CEO is Danielle Schumacher, and she definitely does not do business as usual. She has a hands-on approach, and in addition to her people, her clients, her clients have all been vetted, but more important than that, all of the employers that she brings her clients in contact with have been vetted as well. So her goal is to find a place where her prospective employee can thrive. So that's not just doing the job of putting in some names and sending their resumes out to 100 people and seeing who comes up, where you get a bite. It's not a numbers game for her.
Yeah, it's really it's a philosophical game for her, and it's an opportunity providing game for her. It's
I consider that living the brand, like she's absolutely living her brand.
Yeah, and she's the perfect brand spotlight for the month.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. And a great spokesperson too for the power of what Cannabis Business Alliance can do, and the power of conversation and the power of putting the right people at the right table at the right moment in time.
I couldn't agree with you more.
So talk a little bit about when you dream about Cannabis Business Alliance, what would members see when they get there? You join Cannabis Business Alliance. What, in an ideal world, knowing we're still in startup, knowing that we're developing content as we go, knowing that we're building a community and building a conversation, in your mind, what would you, because you're not just the founder, you're a member of the Cannabis Business Alliance, and you are an ancillary business, you are a spokesperson for brands, do you do all kinds of things other than the founder of Cannabis Business Alliance? So you as a member, what would you expect to see or want to see when you get to the Cannabis Business Alliance member page?
As you know, I spent several years creating the brand Cannaboomer. And Cannaboomer is a bridge, really, between marketers who want to reach people over 55 or 60 years of age. We're a bridge between good information, curated content to actually teach and educate and help keep people who are baby boomers healthy and alive. We're looking for opportunities to thrive. As a member of the Cannabis Business Alliance, Cannaboomer, I'm looking for a community that understands that we go further in community. I'm also looking for a place where I'm not there's no one gatekeeping for me. They're keeping me out of it based upon my inability to pay $2,500 for a membership for one organization. Like most startups don't have that kind of money. And if we did, $2,500 might be the membership amount that we had for the entire year for all membership. organizations. We want the benefit of a community where we are not spectators. We want to be involved in the creation and understanding how policy is made. And we also want to have a place where we can go and get questions answered. We want to definitely be in community with other people like ourselves, but we also want to be in community with people who are smarter than us, where sharing is not a threat, where there's a possibility to solve a problem quickly with another peer who may be at a different place in the journey, and that shouldn't cost $10,000. I mean, their scarcity does not rule this community. Really, we're talking about, excuse me, functioning in a space where there's really enough for everybody. And collaboration is the key, as opposed to collaboration partnering that over competing, because I do believe there really is enough. So that's what I want to see. I want to see a community where I can go in, perhaps have the benefit of thought partnership with other peers, maybe have the benefit of a personal partnership moment with someone who is much further along in the journey than me. I want to have the benefit of interaction with people who have already done what I'm trying to do and can share or guide. And this is not to say that I'm looking for freebies. We're looking for a community where it is rich in content and that kind of sharing takes place. So you don't feel bad if you pay $175 for a membership, because what you learn or what you gather or the people you meet, they're all beneficial to you. So we're sharing our contacts, our knowledge, and our growth with each other.
Yeah, I think that some of the things that we've been talking about adding to the community hit at all of those points. Like, talk a little bit about, I think there's a couple of fascinating things we've been talking about that aren't usual in membership organization. One is a thought partner. Talk a little bit about what is a thought partner? What does a thought partner do? And what kinds of people do we have who will be thought partners?
Well, I don't want to name names because we don't have a calendar per se.
Right.
And we don't have permission to do that. But if you look at our founding members, you have an idea about the depth of experience that we have. And we're just beginning. We're just beginning with increasing membership, because the first thing is really to be able to serve. Like, it's very important that we're able to serve the members who are there. I am not looking to create an environment just based on numbers. I really am looking to create a community where people can measure its value to their business. And so a very good experience that I had was with a thought partner in another community. And so I would like to bring that experience here. And in that experience, what happened was, you have 30 minutes to discuss in conversation with someone who is perhaps a multiple time entrepreneur. And the focus is just on you. It's just on your question. 30 minutes requires you really to get clear about what it is that you're asking. Not just save me, solve my problem. It's really, what is this thing that is holding you back? Can you describe it succinctly enough that somebody can help you? And so I would like to bring that model of thought partnership into the Cannabis Business Alliance community. And so members could look forward to maybe, once a quarter, having an opportunity to speak with someone that can give them guidance,
And these would be other community members who
community
potentially
members?
could have gone through what you're going through,
Yeah,
or might see something you don't see, or you might go in and say, here's the thought partner of the month, and maybe it's Danielle, and you never thought of the fact that you really do need this kind of HR help and this kind of, so it's a way of not just solving an existing problem, but also opening up other opportunities and opening up other doors and seeing
absolutely.
things a little differently.
Absolutely. I think that, again, using Danielle as the example, her wealth of experience and knowledge to another business is incredible. Like, so to be in community with her, you're going to know policy, you're going to understand regulation with with foresight. Like, how can we create something that is meaningful and also reflects the values that we believe in? Because you've heard her talk about being intentional about who's in the process of solving the problem. I don't want to talk about it too much, because I do have a podcast coming with her
Oh,
where
great.
we'll be able to
When will that drop? When will that drop?
it should drop by mid-month. The first part of it has been done and we just have to finish up. Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of thing that you as Cannaboomer have done so well, is found these people who really bring value to the space, who really have a place where they speak from that's not just business. There's a health component, there's an equity component, there's a leveling the playing field component for communities, there's a policy component, there's some major pivot point with everybody that you talk to. It could be genetics, it could be things that most people aren't going to think about, even those who are entrenched in the community are not necessarily going to think about.
Absolutely. I find that I learn something new. I learn something new every day. I mean, I really do learn something new every day. And I mean, that is my thing. I am a lifelong learner, but certainly this business has opened me up to the depth of the segments in the industry, the things that need to be thought about, and then trying to understand how one thing in the supply chain is connected to another. I have used the word supply chain, but then I didn't understand when I first started off just how vast it is, how many people are involved in that supply chain, or how they really connect to make business.
One of the things that one of our first conversations about supply chain really opened my eyes. There are people, when you talk about non-plant touching businesses, you don't necessarily think of, the big regulations. You don't necessarily think of licensing, but that's not true, is it?
Not completely. I mean, the way that the rules have come out in most of the states, there are either 7 or 8 components for required licensing, but you don't need a license to have a delivery service, and that's pretty consistent across the state. I'm not sure that there is any consistency at this point about consumption lounges. I know it's quite controversial and they exist someplace, and like in my area, no one wants to talk about it, like where I live locally. But the point that I'm trying to make is that there are so many things you can do that don't require you to have a license, which means you don't have to spend a lot of money to get permission to get started. And so that means for people who want to be invested or participate rather in the industry, like um, the Commons brand that I am an ambassador for, I don't have to concern myself with startup money to be able to share or teach other people what I've learned about plant medicine. And in this case, even though it's a little murky from state to state or in conversation now, CBD and a lot of the added cannabinoids, these formulations are now available and legal. And it offers an opportunity to talk to people about how the science is changing. You know, what changed in science that would allow people, the vitamin shop, to sell Papa and Barkley products? Like, what happened? You know, why does my dog behave better on CBD, pills than before? Is there any truth to that? Now, if you ask someone associated with the FDA, they'll say there's not enough science to establish that. That may be true. And there's not enough science, partly because of the designation of the plant, but there's lots of actual data. There's lots of actual experiences that suggest there's real evidence and there's real efficacy when it comes to the plant.
Some of that has to do with federal regulations not loosening up as well. And, you personally have had to deal with some things with Cannabis Business Alliance, with banking, for example. The challenges of doing it, of even having an online business that is not plant touching. It's barely business touching, it's people touching. And how do you collect money? So you want to talk about that experience? Is that okay?
Yeah. I mean, this is like the real life of an ancillary business. But it took months for me to, after forming the B Corporation, it took months to get a bank account, even though, mostly because cannabis was in the name of the business. I had to establish both in the state of origin and also in the state where I actually live, that I was not touching the plant, that this was a membership organization. And so I managed that finally. But then I was unable to get a Stripe account because cannabis was in the name. So I was unable to process memberships. So that took me to a whole nother level where we are now able to operate using PayPal. But I guess what I'm saying is that if you are an ancillary business, and I'm not talking about a blue chip ancillary business, we all intend to be blue chip, but where there's large sums of money behind your startup, then you have certain problems of a small business person. And we are living through those problems. So we actually know when it comes to our members, the kind of problems that you have and the kind of people that you need in your community to help you solve those problems. And that it's you need financial people, you need legal people, you need copyright people, you need trademark people, you need people who understand genetics. I mean, you need lots of support. And that's why the community is so important. You need to talk to people who are not necessarily doing the exact same thing that you are.
The first thing that we did officially, publicly, was we had a day where we had 3 round tables. And those of you who are watching can go to the YouTube channel and see all three of those in their entirety. And then we also cut them up into smaller, more digestible bites that were more topical. The thing that came out of that, the thing that just was so glaring, was that hunger for community, that hunger for connection. All of the people who were in those groups connected with each other, stayed connected, and are now, helping support each other. That's the kind of thing that we want to do every single month. So, how did you feel about, walking away from the first roundtable? What did you learn that first day of 3 roundtables?
Well, officially, I felt that indeed we were in business. I felt we were indeed in business because the feedback that I got both individually and from the group was an affirmation that this was a benefit to them, and that participants actually felt a need for a place to just kind of let their hair down and kind of share what they're working through. In the industry, I think trust is really a big concern, like trust for different reasons on different levels. I didn't understand myself initially that a lot of what most businesses are based on is intellectual property. So it's like it's not that easy to just claim a thing and trademark it or whatever. So mistrust happens a lot of places. Like, you don't know when you go into a room how much to talk about or what to share. I'm hoping that we can come with a community that's like the builders. There are membership organizations nationwide that are builders. They all compete for similar contracts because there are only so many builders who build affordable housing in the United States, and they all belong to a membership. So if they can do that, we can certainly do that and be of benefit to each other, definitely. I should add that when it was all over, there were specific things that people said they wanted. Now, I'm not going to reveal exactly what they are because the hope is that we will be able to roll them out for the benefit of the members. But all of these are specifically ideas that existing members say would help them build their business. Because of course, we all need money, but beyond money, there are other things that we need.
Other things that can help lift each other up in the meantime, while money is happening, while money is starting to generate. Some of the things that we've been talking about doing are master classes. There's so much expertise in this founding member, so much wisdom, I guess is a better way to put it, in this group of founding members. And we really hope that the founding members will develop these master classes. We're looking at things, that promote health and healing. We're looking at, plant medicine in general and understanding that better. We're looking at, things that will help businesses enhance their business life. I think that one of the other things that actually took you a while to get to as well, and every time we talk to somebody new, it's that we are business to business. This is business to business. This is businesses lifting each other and elevating each other. This is not business to consumer.
Yet. It is not business to consumer yet.
Yet our consumer, Cannabis Business Alliance consumer, is a business that's trying to thrive in this exciting, ever-changing marketplace. And that's a tough one to hang on to,
Yeah, you're right. It's a tough one to hang on to because I think most people are guided by or misguided by the philosophy that you fake it until you make it.
Right.
So you can't get help because you can't admit that you really need help. You wait to be chosen by someone who sees something in you. I mean, it reminds you, I won't even say what it reminds me of, but the point of the matter really is that we don't have to waste time with that. If we have a community where we can bring our problems, we don't have to waste time with struggling through burnout. This is definitely a situation where in a given day you can be up and down because you're trying to solve problems.
In a given hour,
Yes.
any bootstrapping entrepreneur knows. And I think the kind of people that have been gravitating towards Cannabis Business Alliance to this point are, might be classified as serial entrepreneurs. So they have that spirit, they have that drive, they have whatever that takes to be an entrepreneur, and that hunger. I think that with that hunger comes that hunger for community and that hunger for connection. I think we really saw that in the first set of roundtables.
I would agree with you. I mean, because you could see people looking at each other thinking, yeah, that is me. Like I heard this person's name, but I didn't know this person. And here's an opportunity to be in community with someone that I feel understands what's going on with me and my business. These are real people struggling through today's times. So it's one thing to be told, do this, do that. And it's another thing to live this, live that. So I definitely feel that the camaraderie and the identification with like problems was evident through the exchange.
Yeah, and also a little bit of, and some of the people surprised me, because in my mind I had this hierarchy of this person has done all this stuff, this person is aspiring to do all this stuff, and the person who had done all that stuff was looking at the person who was aspiring to do that stuff and saying, I want to be like you. And how cool is that? When you can level that playing field and say, okay, we're all at the same table. We all have a whole lot of the same concerns. I may have my app. I may have I may have 20 people working for me coding or whatever that is. Or I may have my medical degree, or I may be a nurse, or, I may have my staffing business, or, I may be an advocate for policy on a national level. But there's that common ground, and that whatever that magic was that brought everybody together, and we just kind of watched it light up their faces, and you and I got to watch from the outside. So that was kind of cool.
It was great. Great. I must admit, it was great. And it really makes me hopeful about the future of the Cannabis Business Alliance. So what I have to remind myself of is to think big, to really think big. Every time that little voice on my shoulder asks me what I'm doing, to just ignore it and get back to work, and to learn how to ask better questions. Better questions will elicit more action to move forward. The better question I learn to ask, the more prepared I am for the rooms that I enter, in terms of understanding how the Cannabis Business Alliance can be of benefit to the people that I'm encountering. Not what can I get, but how can the Cannabis Business Alliance be of benefit to the rooms that I'm going into. That's how we're going to be able to build the business, And we did start that way. We did start that way in our early conversations of really trying to understand what our members needed, you know, how, so, do you need to meet people? Do you need to collaborate with people, form partnerships to do different things? This was like a constant question. Of course, I knew what I wanted, but I needed to find out what they wanted. And I don't want to ever lose that,
We'll keep them front and center.
Yeah.
Always, and the needs of the community. And I think the beauty of you being both the founder and a member, a key member, is critical, because you know what you need from your perspective as Cannaboomer as well.
That was a tough one, though. That really was a tough one it's at some point I finally realized, I am a member. Cannaboomer is a member of the community that you're trying to build. So you don't have to struggle with your identity. Like, this is what you do, and this is what you do for the greater good.
Yeah. Speaking of the greater good, one of your focuses is to attract ancillary businesses that are supporting communities. You want to talk a little bit about that?
To attract communities that are supporting ancillary businesses. And by that,
ancillary businesses that promote their community, that help people in their community thrive.
So let's see, an example of that would be, did you have something in particular that you're thinking about?
Humboldt Grace.
Humboldt Grace. Oh, yeah. Well, Humboldt Grace was like our soft launch, actually. Humboldt Grace was our soft launch, and I believe it's considered, it's definitely run by Leilani Dubois. She is someone who I will also be doing an interview with in the near future. She has a company called Canopy Right, which is involved with preserving the genetic information about the plants that different cultivators grow. But we did a support endeavor, I believe in March, to help raise money for the fire victims in the cultivating area of Humboldt Grace last year. And so a lot with the fires, as you know, a lot of the people who grow California cannabis were burned out, and the industry really was, people individually were hurt very badly. So, of course, we support communities who advocate on behalf of the many people who work in the industry, and Humboldt Grace is one of those. So that's an example of questions asked in terms of groups. We also advocate for groups like the Cannabis Nurses of Color. There you have nurses who I believe now in some states can actually wrong term, who can now recommend marijuana cards, and also work with patients who specifically are looking to use cannabis as medicine. So I know I'm flipping between cannabis and the marijuana language, but that's the way that is the way it is. In law, it's called marijuana for when it comes to the medical conversation about it, but it is cannabis. Yeah.
It's that's that intersection, and the language that we put around that intersection sometimes is muddy. It's as muddy as the regulations. It's as muddy as the inconsistency from state to state, municipality to municipality. There is that muddiness. And part of what, when I think about Cannabis Business Alliance, I think about getting rid of that moneyness. You know,
Well,
how do we get through it? You know, you can't get out of it. You can't avoid it. How do you work within it?
I think that the main thing is that you have to be willing to work with change. You know, I mean, no one will disagree that the one thing constant about life is change. But here we're operating in an industry that is being created. You know, it's being created, but everyone's inside working in different areas and trying to figure out how you work together in that area as law, as policy, as regulation are being created. So I think the primary quality that we need at this point is you really have to be flexible. You have to be flexible, you have to be willing to pivot, and you have to be open to the fact that things are changing so that you can understand, oh, we'll have to do this as opposed to that. We need to talk about this in a different way than the way we may have initially been introduced to it. So no stuck in the mud kind of thing. And for me, as an aging entrepreneur, it's like, it's just really nice, you know, it's nice. I'm a lifelong learner. And even though I'm accustomed to learning things easily, that hasn't been the experience. You know, I've bumped my head many times, but I just get up and I start over. Yeah.
I've watched you, we've known each other for a couple years now.
Yes.
And I've watched you not just thrive in uncertainty, but welcome it and say, okay, so here's another puzzle for me to figure out. And that's the entrepreneurial spirit. That's what makes things tick and makes it all go. This is an industry that feels like it was founded on its uncertainty and doesn't really have a way out anytime soon. You know, the federal government, everybody knows the federal government could come and change everything tomorrow.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. But having said that, as you said, we have known each other for a little while. It's much better, you know, when you are in community, which you and I are, with someone who has a business mind. I am a creative. I claim that, you know, I'm a creative who wants to do business. And so you bring another set of principles to the game that for me, they work well, you know. Yeah. So, and we are working through what I would consider the less than ideal circumstances from the standpoint that we don't live in the same state, we don't live in the same time zone, you know, you have other responsibilities other than this, you know, and so
as do you, you've got a whole other brand that you're nurturing and building. Yeah.
This is true. But I, at this point in my life, I just say we all have 24 hours in the day and you just kind of figure out how to use them. Yeah. Sometimes I work in my sleep. Sometimes I work in my sleep.
Yeah, and wake up exhausted, right? Yeah. Yeah, I hear Commons has a product that helps with that, Patricia.
Yes, as a matter of fact, I needed it last night.
Yeah. Well, thank you for this conversation. This was great. And we don't get to do this very often. You know,
no,
we often talk strategy and what's next and who needs to be the next set of emails and who do we attract. And sometimes it's really nice just to talk about what's the dream.
Well, I think that we started this conversation. You didn't introduce yourself.
No.
You know? Basically, you started the conversation about me as a founder, but you all should know that Ruth has been here with me from the beginning. It's like just pushing me through like, okay, so then you can do this, you know, okay, then this is the next step. well, what does that mean? What needs to be done? I really couldn't have done it without her.
We're good partners, and
know.
we're good, what did you call it? Accountability partners.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
it works well. And I am excited to watch the community thrive. We're about to hit that next step. So anybody who's watching either live or who watches this later, we are absolutely open to, to looking at what the next evolution looks like. And I'm in the middle of a city and there's motorcycles driving by. Sorry about that. But I'm in the city, you're at the beach.
Yeah.
I
am really at the beach. But I would like to say that if anyone watching has questions about how the community can benefit them or what they might be thinking about as a possibility, please feel free to shoot us a message in the comments here on the YouTube page, or to send a message to the cannabisbusinessalliances.com website. Subscribe to our free page, consider becoming an actual member, and we're happy to talk to you about anything that may keep you from making that decision to do that.
Yeah, we do conversation well, don't we?
Yes, I was like, and this was completely free form. Like, I didn't know where you were going.
Yeah, unscripted, 100% unscripted. That's great. Thank you for your time. Thank you for allowing me to take this journey with you, and all of you who are members now, who will be members in the future. Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Let's see.